Most rental investors and landlords just buy a property, whether it's a single family rental or a small multifamily or whatever, put in some tenants running the entire thing, call it a day, sit back, hopefully collect some rent checks. Our guest today, Christina Struder, has a different approach. She does room shares, which I'm excited to hear more about. I've never done a room share myself. Seems like a lot of work, but I guess we're going to find that out. Christina is a professional investor. She retired in 2000. She's also a registered investment advisor, and she runs Christina Studer Consulting. So, Christina, welcome to the show, and I'm excited to hear your experiences with room share properties.
Thank you, Brian. I appreciate being on the show. And yes, given that you want to, we all love stories. We all love interesting stories because it helps us learn and helps us engage in the subject matter. So I will give the background a little bit to keep it short to the financials of why room shares. As I've done multifamily, I've done single family, I've done short-term rentals, I've done long-term rentals, mid-term rentals in 7 different states across different times in my investment career. Why room shares now? Okay, so room shares now is because we need higher density. And there are more and more people who are doing the nomadic lifestyle. So there's actually more users of room share. So that's part of the demographics behind room shares. Room shares have existed for a long time, right? I mean, student housing.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Student housing is a room share, right? And we've had, executive housing for a very long time. We've had basically housing for migrant workers for a long time, but now it's become room shares because we're getting more nomadic in the millennials. Okay, fine, give it a different name, but it's really not that different as an asset class. So what I did is I took a 4-bedroom, 2-bath house, which is the same asset I use as my midterms in Indianapolis, and I turned it into a room share. So I added 2 bedrooms in the garage. I took away the living room and the dining room, made each of them a bedroom, and I added 2 bathrooms. But what was most important, and what I know from my college days and from my high school days when I lived in an all-girls dorm, was you need to have a house mom. If you don't have a house mom, you're going to have a problem. So the math is long-term rental, same house, is going to be about $2,000, $2,200. Mid-term rental, same house, $3,200 to $3,500. Room share, same house, just more rooms, right, is about $4,500 to $5,200 a month. $4,500 allows for one room always being empty, including still having your house manager on site. So if I'm paying the same mortgage, I'm putting a little more money into it. So my rehab, instead of being anywhere from 20 to 30 to 50,000, can be close to 50 to 80,000 to make it a room share. So I have a little more money in the property.
Yeah.
But I'm getting more money out of the property, almost twice as much as I would as a long-term rental. Now, my house mom is the one who does a lot of the quote-unquote on-site management. And the reason why you need a house mom, let's talk about that piece. Okay, so I a real live recent example and reminder. So the house mom gets their own bedroom with their own bathroom. So they have the longest, they want to stay for a while. Hey, you've got privacy, you've got your own little space. They're going to be there, we hope, for months, 9 months, a year, 3 years, while everybody else goes. Traveling nurses, people who are there for internships, people who've been headhunted into maybe a high-end engineering job, but their family's not coming with them. They just need a place to sleep. So it's not necessarily all low-end blue-collar workers. Some of them are high-end blue-collar workers. Some of them are low-end white-collar workers. So that's kind of our population. And you can cultivate that population by going to furnish finders, going to nurse finders. So you're specifically targeting and focusing on that population. Even Zillow, Airbnb can be useful for getting the right population. Versus like a roomster or a room share, you might get a different population. All right. So now I have a house. It brings me more money. Love that. Yes, more intensive because now you're rotating 8 tenants in and out instead of just 1 tenant in and out. But my property manager is the same. Huh?
So, yeah, it sounds like these are shorter term renters.
Short-term renters.
3 to 9 months. Is that about right?
Generally, we request 6 months. So we generally request, but we sometimes have traveling nurses that stay for 3. So yes. So 6 months, so 3 months to a year. Had a gentleman, had my house, had my room mom, but it was a gentleman who was my room mom. He moved out and everything was going actually quite smoothly. The nurses were getting along with each other. They had some night workers and people were there. You could see that, on the cameras, they were coming and going. But then after the house mom, dad moved out, we started having one tenant who started screaming at the other tenants. Like, what's going on? Like, to the point where one of them was like sending us a video going, this is what's happening in the house. We're not happy. Oh my God. Okay, this is an unusual situation, just to warn everybody. This is not a normal house situation. And so we ended up calling the police because there was no house mom or house dad on property to be able to settle the issue. So, and then the next night, the same thing happened. And we ended up, the same lady's like, help, right? Called the police again. The next morning, we get a phone call from the gentleman who was yelling and screaming, saying, hi, yeah. She's like, what's going on? Like, normally you're like grounded, cool. Like, what's going on with you, dude? And he's like, well, actually, I'm schizophrenic and I have my medication and I'm supposed to go get it tomorrow. Okay, that is explaining why you're not settling down. So the story ends, I'm afraid, that he did end up doing damage in the house. We did end up evicting him. It did end up being difficult. Good news is, because we moved all of the tenants out of the house and into another midterm rental I had that was a 4-bedroom, 2-bath, and I had space for the other gentleman in another rental. We moved everybody out. He ended up leaving and abandoning the property. We were able to confirm he had abandoned the property, and we moved everybody back in again. We only lost one tenant in the entire mix. So that worked out really well for us because we effectively still had a functioning room share at the end result. But we did have to evict. So what's the moral of the story? The moral of the story is house moms or house dads keep the house calmer. They have longer loyalty from your tenants. They have less damage from potential tenants. You can have community parties and outings, which we had in the summer, which is sort of a community get together, like, hey, buy some chicken, buy some pizza, have people hang out. And you're creating an environment that is a community that's clean, comfortable, contemporary. People are there for 3 to 6 months, maybe a year, but they still have a sense of belonging. And the house mom is the one that can create that for the house, solve the problems, keep it all calm and easy. And even though it costs money to have the house mom, you give them 50% off their rent. It ends up in the long run, it ends up in the long run being a much more stable house with much more consistent rents. When that person left was when we ran into the problem. So I think room shares are great. I don't happen to use the application pad split, but you can use the application pad split. It allows you to have a membership base. So if you have a city that doesn't want to let you do room shares, pad split ends up being a shelter for that because it's not a room share, it's membership. If that gives you any hints, any tips. What are your questions, Brian?
Well, so how much so there's obviously a lot more labor involved in this. How much of that labor is the house mom or house dad? How much of that are they taking on? I mean, are they showing vacant rooms to prospects like a leasing agent would? Or how much of this extra lift from a labor perspective are you taking on as the landlord?
I'm taking on very little, but I have 2 levels. So because I have other units in the area that are midterm rentals and are already managed in a very similar way, I have that same property manager managing this property who's not on site. But then I have the on-site person I'm giving that $400, because the rooms are $800, $850. So I'm giving a $400, $425 discount to somebody who's stabilizing the property. And then they're managing what's happening in the house. They can open the doors, show the rooms, and let people do that. My manager is still managing the income and the consistency of the income and evicting people or asking people if they're behind. She's still managing it as if it was an 8-unit apartment building. But the on-site person is the one who's really making the difference.
Gotcha. Okay, so you're kind of sort of paying double property management, but the math still comes out way ahead because you're charging twice as much for rental income.
Exactly. And instead of having a 4-bedroom, 2-bath making $3,200 to $3,500, I'm making $4,500 to $5,000. Again, that $4,500 to $5,000 is assuming I still have one room chronically empty. So the vacancy factor is already baked into that one. Gotcha. So therefore, I'm not paying an extra $3,500 to $4,500 is an extra $1,000. I'm not losing $1,000 to my double property management, right? Because it has built in that one layer of property management is in that $4,500 to $5,000 number, already accounts for one layer of that.
Okay. All right. Any final thoughts for people considering renting out a room share, boarding house, whatever you want to call it?
Or creating one. I encourage you to create one. You can rent one too. I rented a room share when I was in college. And so this is part of why I knew about the house mom thing is because I rented a room share in college among a whole bunch of graduate students. Do you have an idea of how chemistry graduate students party? I'm just mentioning. I'm just saying. You've run into this. I can see it on your face. The good news is the house mom makes sure that's not happening in your house as well. So that's the advantage of the house mom or house dad. So what was I saying? So the $1,000. So yeah, I get to keep that extra $1,000, even though with the property management, yes, it's 2 layers, but it's obviously well worth the 2 layers. I live in California. These properties are in Indianapolis.
Yeah. So yeah, pretty hands off for you, which is great. That's awesome.
Oh yeah. So the extra work for me is very little. It's the upfront. Finding the right property with the right size yard, with it can be reconstructed into the right numbers of rooms, and that you have enough parking. If you're going to have 8 rooms, you got to have eight parking spaces on the lot. And that actually is almost harder than being able to find a house that you can reconfigure easily into 8 bedrooms.
Interesting. Yeah, no, I hadn't even thought of that angle for that. It's fascinating. Well, Christina, in 30 seconds or less, how do you help people and how can people connect with you if they want to take you up on that help?
Well, I'm passionate about real estate, as you probably have guessed, given I've been doing it for over 35 years. But I'm also doubly passionate about people finding their sense of purpose. Real estate is a tool to help you fulfill your life's purpose, your life's joy. How do you use real estate as that tool is what I answer in my registered investment advisement practice.
I love that. And where can people connect with you?
.com or 310-463-5942. That is my cell phone. So 310-463-5942. Text me and we'll set up a discovery call.
Awesome. Well, Christina, thank you so much for joining us today. And guys, if you got a fresh perspective out of this episode, please pass it on to someone you know who could also use a fresh perspective. And if you're new to hands-off real estate investing, we have a whole course on it, sparkandall.com/free. Check it out. Short episodes, 5 to 10 minutes a piece, 8 of them. And on that note, stay weird, unconventional investors.